Salton Base, where the world's first geoengineers gathered to run the first micro-terraforming experiments. Due to the urgency of the pollution issue, low environmental regulations were established, thus creating the first terraforming sandbox. In 2022, the hypersaline Salton Sea had reached an all-time high of 7%, more than double the salt concentration of the Pacific Ocean. Asthma cases in Salton City were triple the surrounding area due to receding shorelines releasing unconstrained dust pollution. The rising salinity caused cycles of toxic algae blooms, killing what little remained of the fish population. Hydrogen sulfide, a product of rotting organisms formed within the seas, rose upwards into the air like gaseous death drifting outwards towards cities such as San Diego. Agriculture sites allowing their runoff of excess phosphates and nitrates into the sea, creating excess energy, fueling the boom and bust cycles of the toxic algae blooms, knowing that there won't be any consequences. And yet, among all this death, two engineers stood at the crest of the Salton Sea, the dust whipping their faces. One bent down to pick up the sand, watching it as it ran through his fingers. They silently walked back to their car, yet their minds were ablaze with ideas, for they knew it was time. Back in Salton City, they rented an apartment, 8 rooms, for they would soon convince their friends to join them. It smelled of the inescapable sulfur, like rotten eggs. They set out bacteria to absorb the hydrogen sulfide from the air and reduce the scent. They duct taped all entries and outlets to control the airflow, creating an airlock in their kitchen. They designed filters to catch the microparticles of dust. Finally, their home had breathable air. This cheap setup reduced asthma rates and made the indoor air relatively pleasant, and they began selling this air filtration system to the remaining population, their first revenue stream, although it was small. With indoor living secured, it was time to begin terraforming the sea. Being 15 miles wide and 35 long, it was impossible to build a dome to create a microenvironment, for now. So to start, they threw tarps over the areas they could to reduce the evaporation rate, although the impact of this was minor. They knew the highest leverage action would be to increase the water supply without building any costly infrastructure. And it just so happened that there was an ocean nearby. And so they bought a boat and attached a nozzle to the back of it. They took in ocean water and began spraying mist of highly concentrated salt particles into the sky. These salt particles would condense water and, when the wind was right, drift clouds towards the sea. As the masters of the first functioning marine cloud brightening technology, they commercialized it. They sold clouds to Australia, decreasing the temperature of their overheated coral reefs, allowing the coral reefs to flourish. And thus, Australia's tourist industry flourished as well, and Australia paid handsomely. With this new revenue stream from Australia, they could finally aim towards their microenvironment, a dome to contain the water and only let water in. First, they built walls of vertical farming around the sea, and they used the agricultural runoff, phosphates and nitrates to accelerate growth. And throughout all of this, with water from clouds and food from vertical farming and jobs from terraforming, the population grew rapidly. The experiments were fantastic. Genetic engineers creating high salinity organisms, mechanical engineers building robots for repetitive terraforming operations, chemical engineers extracting lithium from the sea and brine to sell to Tesla, engineers constructing geothermal wells to power the city and desalinate the sea even more. Eventually, years after they had sealed their first home, they had the resources to attempt the dome, 15 miles wide, 35 miles long. Atop the vertical farms, using heat for lifting, they hoisted the dome upwards, and it held. Composed of an ultra-light material, it absorbed water from the air and constantly dripped it into the sea. It could be expanded as needed as the sea grew, and it would hold for years. This was the step change in their water intake. The salinity was rapidly decreasing. Although their task was not done, there was much more to terraform. The two engineers stood back and gazed at their accomplishment. The dome, the geothermal desalinators, the hybrid organisms, the community, and the clouds they had created, all from their belief it was possible. And so, with the experience gained from the early signs of their successful Salton terraformation, they went on to form the founding team of the Earth Terraforming Initiative. And eventually, the MULTI-PLANETARY Terraforming Initiative was born. Yo, what's up you guys? I hope you enjoyed that short story. Definitely let me know in the comments if you want more short stories like this. And yeah, thank you for checking out the YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.